most of our clients say to us, you gave us the confidence to make a decision. And some of these guys have been in the market for 6 to 12 months looking on their own, and they get what we call analysis paralysis because there's so much information coming at them. They don't know the market. They're coming up to look at property that they never would have bought in a million years. The photos just look good. And it just gets so hard, they do one of two things. They freeze and they get analysis paralysis and they don't move forward, or they buy out of frustration. I'm done with this process. I'm sick of it. I hate it. I just want to buy a house. So they'll make compromises and perhaps not buy maybe what they should have bought.
Yep.
So most of our clients, who, even if they've been in the market for 6 to 8 months, they can buy a house in a week and feel really good about it. So it's giving them the confidence, and we just share all of our market knowledge and our experience, and we hand it to them, and we teach them along the way. A lot of them,
Absolutely.
They come out and say, I learned so much. We help them make a decision.
Yep.
And that's gold, because some of them don't know where they want to live even. What even does my budget buy me? I can't work this Central Coast market out. I don't know where I can afford, where I should buy. Is that a good suburb? Is that not a good suburb? What's around the corner that I don't know about? Does that flood? They don't know. No wonder they get analysis paralysis.
Welcome to session 2. Here we go. I guess before we delve into it, we wanted to have a special shout out to Misha and David at the Studio Co for allowing us to run our podcasts here, our series here.
We're also members here.
We are.
We use the space all the time, every week with our team. It's great space.
It's awesome because we don't really need a permanent office. We never have, really. Well, we don't so far because no one would be in it, so it'd be a bit of a waste.
No, and it's great for the coast. It's multi-purpose. It's I guess we loved the interior design of here as well, of the Studio Co. It feels good. It doesn't feel like an office.
No.
We didn't want to sit in a boring office.
No, well, I guess that's a good segue into our session 2. What are we going to talk about
thanks,
today?
Misha and David. We love it here.
So session 2, we're going to talk about what is a buyer's agent, because obviously we are buyer's agents. So we're going to unpack what that actually means today. What is it that we do? What are the benefits? How can we help people?
And what do people say? How do we help them? We'll share those comments. Because surprisingly enough, most people say exactly the same thing. No matter what they're buying, no matter how much they've got to spend, most of our clients have the same kind of feedback.
They do, and I think there's still so much education that's required out there about what a buyer's agent actually is. A lot of people say they know what a buyer's agent is and maybe they've heard of it, but they actually don't know on a deeper level what it is or how we add value and how we can help. So, we're going to unpack that today.
Well, when we started our business, most selling agents didn't know what a buyer's agent was.
No.
They knew of a buyer's agent, don't get me wrong, they did. There's also a lot of other terms that selling agents call themselves buyer's agents sometimes, but that's another thing we can talk about in a minute. But selling agents loosely knew what a buyer's agent did, but they were surprised to hear that
There's probably more selling agents that had worked in Metro.
in Sydney.
Yeah.
I remember they used to say to us, so do you have an agency agreement?
Yeah.
Remember?
Oh, do you actually get paid?
Yeah, like, are you just looking at anything or are you actually working for someone? Like, it's...
You go around Saturdays shopping for fun.
Yeah, like there was a lot of... So I guess one of the first things we did when we started our business in 2020 is we had a lot of relationships already with selling agents. You'd been in Sydney for a while, so probably, your network was Sydney and Central Coast. Mine was very much in the Terrigal area of the Central Coast because I'd been around a long time as a selling agent. So, and I was also working very closely with the developer and also with the McGrath team, McGrath projects. So, I worked very closely with Jamie Woodcock, who is a fantastic operator. And he was very supportive of our business.
Yeah, it's always been really, fabulously supportive.
And huge thanks to Jamie. A lot of respect, great operator. And, when we started our business, he was very supportive. He could see, that
You could see the value
He could
of
see
how
the
we could help.
value.
Yeah.
So one of the first things we did was get in front of their sales team, which was fantastic. 50 or 60 agents in a room, which was great. But of those agents, not many of them had transacted with a buyer's agent, remember? Yeah.
Or
a
if they
handful.
had, I think one of the questions, who had operated or worked with a buyer's agent and who'd had a positive experience and who hadn't.
Yes, yeah.
I remember that. And alarmingly, there was more than anticipated who actually had not had a fabulous experience for a number of reasons.
So we had our work cut out for us.
Totally.
There was a lot of education on the coast to what a buyer's agent actually was or is and what we do.
Yeah, it's just definitely been a journey of credibility with the selling agents, I feel. There's a mix of a fear of, we're going to take their fee or a portion of their fee or interrupt their fee in some way, shape or form, which is actually not the case. We are completely independent. Well, a buyer's agent should be completely independent. Vendor advocacy is another whole side of it, so we're not talking about that today. But as a buyer's agent, you should be 100% independent.
Do you think the selling agents felt a little bit threatened until they transacted with us?
I feel like, and again, this is a whole other topic which we'll probably unwrap later on, but as a selling agent, we can speak from this position because we have been one. You control the entire process.
That's how I mean by threatened, not
Yep.
threatened as in threatened, but threatened as in I'm not in control of the
Correct.
process.
Yeah, totally. So I think most selling agents, it is the fear of the unknown. Oh my gosh, they're going to interrupt my way, my process, my control.
Yeah.
Instead of actually looking at the way we help.
Yeah.
And can help. And in so many ways, we've had situations where we've had clients that are buying and selling at the same time. And we've actually helped to expedite the selling process by giving them advice. But the selling agent doesn't know that because they were umming and ahhing about, oh my gosh, what should we do? We're not sure.
How many times do vendors ring us though?
Oh,
and
all the
ask for
time.
advice?
Absolutely. And quite often we help move them along in the process because we're giving them a different perspective and a different opinion and it's unbiased. And so it gives them the confidence then to make the decision to move forward. So a lot of selling agents actually don't know that because it goes on in the background behind closed doors. So that is a really, really huge way that we add value to a selling agent and can help.
And I think, having been selling agents ourselves, we understand what they go through. It's hard. You may have a vendor who wants too much for their house and you're working through a process to get it to a point where it's saleable. We're not there to school a real estate agent. We never do. If it's priced a bit high or we see it as not a great buy, we'll move on. We'll give our honest opinion, but certainly not in a detrimental way or a rude way. It's always very collaborative. But the selling agents mostly, once they've worked with us, understand that we understand the value of property and we're there to bridge the waters between the buyer and the vendor. But what they quickly understand is a lot of that qualification process that they generally have to do with a buyer in prepping a buyer to understand the market, understand what the property's worth, understand the value of the property it may be in, what it offers or the location. We do all that for them and they're ready to buy. So by the time we get to the point of negotiation, they're ready to do the deal. So that's the feedback that we often get is the selling agents go, my gosh, that was so easy. I didn't have to do any of that. It was half the workload.
Yep.
And we're not touching their fee and the buyer's happy and the seller's happy.
Absolutely.
So our transactions with the selling agents are fantastic.
They are. There's no argy-bargy and who's going to win. And you know what? In a negotiation, there's no such thing as winning. It's about coming to an agreement that everyone feels like
We're there to get the best deal.
Well,
Don't
totally.
get us wrong,
Everyone
they know that.
is. Yeah, each side is, but at the same time, everyone feels like they've gotten something out of it. No one's feeling ripped off or like someone's had it over them, or it's very respectful. And look, at the end of the day, it's as simple as this. A seller wants to sell for the highest amount, a buyer wants to buy for the lowest amount, and it's about us bridging the waters. And if there's a deal on the table and the agent, it works with us, if there's a deal to be done, there's a deal to be done. If it's not, then we move on. No hard feelings. So you don't need to have this battle of egos and all this nonsense that, I don't know, some people feel needs to happen. And I guess that
that brings me to another point. A lot of people ask us, who do you mostly deal with? Honestly, we did some numbers. This was sometime last year, I think. In a 12-month period, we'd bought, I don't know, like 50-something properties, I think it was. And we'd transacted with 38 different agencies. Not agents, agencies.
Yep.
So that goes to show the vast ground we cover and that we're really working the entire market.
Yeah,
We're not dealing with one agent or only going to one or favouring an agent. We deal with, that's a big number.
well,
That's
just
a
goes
lot
to
of
show
agencies across
we are
the coast.
independent and we
Yeah.
take a cross section of the entire market. We're not just after one agent's listings or one agency's listings. We're out there to find the very best property we can for our clients for the very best price. And when we say the very best price, it's not the cheapest price, or it's about setting them up for success. So it's about really understanding our client's brief and knowing what they can afford, because it's human nature that when a buyer has a brief or has a budget, they go out and they look for property, and naturally they look at the top end of their budget, but they don't understand the pricing or the pricing strategies, and so they miss out time and time again because they're looking at property they can't afford. So we help navigate that.
And we don't want to buy the cheapest house. We don't want to buy the cheapest house because guess what? The house that's easy to buy, it's going to be hard to sell because no one wants it.
Yeah.
So be very wary of the house that is easy to buy, particularly in a market that we're in. We've got low stock levels. We want quality property that will stand the test of time for our clients, because no one knows, the intent might be that you're going to own this property for 20 years. Great. Property should be a long-term investment, at least 10, to really, realise the capital growth. But life happens.
Yeah, it does.
Sometimes you might have to sell sooner than you thought, or there could be a circumstance that comes along. So you want to know that you've got a really strong investment.
Yeah, it's got to be robust and it's got to be able to withstand all markets, because as you rightly said, life happens. And it's, again, the buyer psyche, they are budget driven, not strategic. And so whether you're going to live in the house or whether it's an investment property, either way, it needs to be a really good purchasing and investment decision, so it can sustain whatever happens and your life decisions and anything on unless it's for a commercial, reason or some other, personal reason, but things like main roads on the side of the hill in the dark, damp, anything that's got a fundamental issue that's going to make it last on the list for tenants and last on the list for a potential buyer, we just don't entertain those properties. We don't even go look at them. It's just not a good purchasing decision. So, but buyers, again, don't know this because they get caught up in the photographs and they think it looks amazing and they travel kilometres and they get there and they go, oh, wow, this is not what I thought it was. And they've wasted a whole weekend or a whole day, given up time with their kids and work and whatnot. So again, we save all that time.
And that's probably brings us to the, how do we help our buyers? We've got a list. There's probably 10 things that we have broken down where we really help our buyers, and time is one of them. Mm-hmm. You've got to put a price on your time, and the longer it takes to buy a property, the market could be moving, and you're investing all that time and you're still not really understanding the market and what you should be paying. So yeah, time's one. But the other one that we're always asked about, the buzzword, which can be a great way to buy property. So off market, probably the most talked about item on the buyer's agent list. And yes, we buy off markets. We bought 2 last week.
We did.
And they're a great way to buy property sometimes, not always, but you need to have the knowledge to know what are the good off markets and what are the ones that are just taking advantage and potentially just wanting a great big price.
Yeah, and I think it's important. So our definition of an off market is perhaps different to others. So for us, when we buy off market, they're not emailed out to a database. So when we classify a purchase as an off market, and so our number that we advertise that we've purchased off market is probably a little lower, And the reason is because they're actually true off markets. And so true off market is they haven't seen the light of day. So they're
They haven't been
manufactured.
mailed out to 10,000 people on a database.
They're all over social media portals. Like, they literally are manufactured out of a conversation or an opportunity, and it's timing, it's our expertise that bring this together. So, and it can take a long time. It's not just, instant, because quite often these opportunities are actually not ready. They haven't engaged a solicitor yet. They haven't, done any sort of preparation. So these transactions are quite lengthy, can be, and they don't always come off.
So why would, and this is back to helping people out there, not just people that work with us. So let's say you're a buyer and you're going to go it alone. You don't want a buyer's agent for whatever reason at this point. How do they access these off markets? Can they access these off markets? Which is an interesting question. What can we share there?
Well, they can, because we hear clients say, that so-and-so agent showed me this off market. Well, it's not really. It's been emailed out to their entire database and they've just labelled it off market. There may be situations for sure where a selling agent may have sold for them and then introduced them to another property that's, so in that sort of situation, that may happen if they know they're qualified and ready to go. And
then begs the question, how do they work out if it's the right price?
Yep.
You've got to have a pretty thorough knowledge of the market to know, okay, I've got this fantastic opportunity. This selling agent's told me about this off market. What do I pay for it? Am I overpaying because it's a secret? I've got no other social proof of anyone else involved that what it's worth. So how do you then work out whether it is a good buy? And how do we value property? Some might say, well, how do you work out what a property's worth? When we're operating in the market every single day, you and I are working, this is how we used to price property as a listing agent. So have been doing this for a very long time. We'll walk into a property and assess it pretty quickly, but all of a sudden we're going, that one down the road sold for that. That one up the road sold for that. Oh, but that had this. That was a sloping backyard. That had a view. And all of a sudden we've got all of these properties and the prices that we know they sold for as yardsticks. That's how we value property.
And that's actually a really interesting point to, again, revert back to the conversation we just had earlier about selling agents and how we add value. So we have so many selling agents ringing us all the time, or at open homes or inspections, asking us about other properties, because they will work an area, or they obviously, it's their job to know what recent sales are, but a lot of the time they actually haven't physically walked through those properties where we have. And so it comes up all the time. They're like, have you seen this? Have you walked through it? How does it differ to this one? I'm struggling with price on this one, but I don't understand, because you
have to have that experience.
100%.
Don't you remember our lovely clients? And we won't, obviously they're very private people. We're not going to talk about who they are. But he was engaging us, him and his wife, to buy a high-end property, and very well-educated man who wanted to make sure he had the right people. He wanted to know how our knowledge was in the market of Terrigal. And he put us through our paces.
Oh, he did.
He really
Probably
did.
one of the hardest clients we've ever had.
Probably one of the hardest clients. But every single property that he mentioned to us, one of us had walked through. Obviously, I spent a decade in Terrigal in that high-end market. So I had literally seen or knew of the owner, the developer, whatever it was, every single property, and I could talk about it because I'd been through it. You can't fake that.
No.
You can't fake it.
Absolutely not. And in the end, that's why he engaged us. And he interviewed a range of other agents, and in the end, that was his comfort level. And I guess that's why.
So off markets, I guess, without losing our track, that's how we price them, and they can be a great way to buy, right? And we're always hunting for them. And it is a big value out of a buyer's agent.
Absolutely, but it's not the be-all and end-all. No. And if, it's a misconception, if people think that the only value a buyer's agent brings to the table is their ability to get off markets, very wrong. Because sometimes the best way to buy property is on the market, where there's plenty of social proof, And, that takes a lot of skill, particularly if there's, lots of other buyers involved. There's multiple offers. Quite often, particularly a more junior agent won't know how to handle that situation.
Yep.
So it's our ability to work with them and, have the expertise to try and manage that situation and win the property for our clients.
And this brings us to off markets, time, all these things that we add, because 80% of our clients, if we want a statistic, are from Sydney or out of area, which that's a whole other conversation that we'll have in another episode, because COVID, whilst we've always been a great option for people that can't afford the Sydney market, dedicating yourself to a 5-day-a-week commute was a big call. So COVID's really opened the Central Coast up, and that's a whole nother conversation. But most of our clients say to us, you gave us the confidence to make a decision. And some of these guys have been in the market for 6 to 12 months looking on their own, and they get what we call analysis paralysis because there's so much information coming at them. They don't know the market. They're coming up to look at property that they never would have bought in a million years. The photos just look good. And it just gets so hard, they do one of two things. They freeze and they get analysis paralysis and they don't move forward, or they buy out of frustration. I'm done with this process. I'm sick of it. I hate it. I just want to buy a house. So they'll make compromises and perhaps not buy maybe what they should have bought.
Yep.
So most of our clients, who, even if they've been in the market for 6 to 8 months, they can buy a house in a week and feel really good about it. So it's giving them the confidence, and we just share all of our market knowledge and our experience, and we hand it to them, and we teach them along the way. A lot of them,
Absolutely.
They come out and say, I learned so much. We help them make a decision.
Yep.
And that's gold, because some of them don't know where they want to live even. What even does my budget buy me? I can't work this Central Coast market out. I don't know where I can afford, where I should buy. Is that a good suburb? Is that not a good suburb? What's around the corner that I don't know about? Does that flood? They don't know. No wonder they get analysis paralysis.
Absolutely. And look, we're not saying a buyer's agent isn't for everybody. And, by no means are we saying that everybody finds a need. But we really do help in so many different ways, and every client's journey is different, and the reason they come to us is different. So, people are time poor. That's certainly one. Geography is another. If they're literally not here and can't get here, another reason. Some don't understand the market, don't know what they can get for their money, don't actually understand their budget and what their budget can afford. Investors.
They come and go.
They do.
Market.
They don't have the confidence to really know, oh my gosh, is this a really good decision or not? And they, want someone else to bounce off and really help them understand, their strategy and their process and how to negotiate.
Because if an investor's capital growth focused, we would look in a different area than if they were yield focused. So it's about working out for an investor, what is their strategy. They might have a portfolio where they have, a bit of this and a bit of that, but for this purchase, I want to concentrate on this. And we can do that for them, because you'd be looking in very different pockets for different things.
Well, it also takes a different expertise. Buying an investment property is very different to buying a home you're going to live in. It's a totally different skill set. It's a different level of experience. And, you've got to be well versed as a buyer's agent in both, because they are entirely different. And there's so many different strategies and areas and a level of knowledge that, not every buyer's agent has. So it's important.
Some of the red flags we see a lot are buyers falling in love with
the styling
furniture sometimes, not opening up the lens to look around. It's incredible that a buyer can sometimes go through a house and not look at the neighbour, or the guy up the road, or the house down the street. There's a lot to take in, and when you're trying to make a decision, and you can't take emotion out of a purchase. As much as people go, you can't buy a house with emotion. It's actually impossible, I think, to take emotion out of buying a house that you're going to live in with your family and raise your family, or, it's where your safe place. So we tell our clients, have all the emotion, do all of that. We don't have it. That's why you've got us. So it's hard to not have emotion. But that emotion stops them. It can change the perspective a little bit, right? They want to see the good in it because I want to like this house. So I'm not going to notice that maybe the street's not the best or the roof looks a bit dodgy or, there's a water leak up there that we really need to investigate further. So it's almost like we walk into a house and they jump out at us, don't they, those problems? The crooked floors or the patches on the roof or they just scream out, hey.
Yeah, hello, we're here.
I think it's just years of looking at property. And it's not going to be our house, so we're looking at it through a very different lens.
Yeah, very different lens. So, no, all of those things stand out a lot to us, which is good, but also quite often the emotion takes over and buyers get caught up in FOMO, fear of missing out. So, they're listening to, the agent talk about other buyers and talk about price, and they get this situation where they're like, oh my God, if I don't do that, I'm not going to get it. And instead of, taking a step back and, really thinking about their decision and not being put in that pressure cooker kind of environment. And that's, again, where we come in and, can really help calm down the situation and think it through and talk it through and come up with the best strategy and not be pressured into a decision.
I think mainly too, like if you're a buyer who doesn't have the relationships that we have with the selling agents, like when you think about it, there's not too many selling agents that we just can't pick up the phone and go, hey, how you going? Like we don't hang out at barbecues, but we know them all. So they take our call. If you're a buyer and you're one of 20 or 30 people that went through an open house, there would be that fear that, oh, what if they don't call me back and it gets sold and I miss out? We kind of alleviate that because we're like, don't worry, we've got you. We'll make sure that doesn't happen.
Yep.
But there would be that fear as a buyer. Hang on, what about me? I don't want to miss it.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of fear.
Yeah. The other thing that annoys me, one of our clients said it to us the other day. Oh, yeah, we bought this house and look, we overpaid. We know we overpaid. My God, why is that okay?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be happy about that. But it's almost like, I guess it's a defense mechanism, like trying to reassure themselves, okay, well, we know, so that's okay. But it's actually not okay.
No, it's not
because
okay.
Because you're going to pay for that it's actually going to cost you more than overpaying because you're going to realise it down the track. So again, we help avoid that situation. We don't let our clients overpay. And I guess that comes back to, at the end of the day, there's a role to play for all of us in this, and a selling agent works for the vendor. They're being paid by the vendor, and it is their job to get the highest possible price that they can get for that vendor.
In fact, they're legally obliged to do so.
Absolutely. And so they should.
Absolutely.
They're not doing anything wrong with doing that. They're doing their job.
Agents. We worked hard for our sellers.
Absolutely. And
you can still do it with integrity, and most do.
100%.
They can still provide a great service to their buyers and get the best price for their sellers.
Absolutely.
But the buyer still has to understand they can be professional and integral and do all the perfect things. They're not working for you. No. The single clearest question you have to ask yourself is who is paying who? Mm-hmm. Who is paying the selling agent?
And even if there's a selling agent that calls themselves a buyer's agent, they're managing buyers, but they're managing buyers on behalf of the selling agent.
That's a very good point.
Super confusing.
This is annoying.
It is.
Sorry. That's a very good point. When a selling agent has a team of people, sometimes it's mostly a new person, right? Yep. They come into the team and they call them buyer's agents. They're not buyer's agents. They're assistant selling agents because what their job is to work with buyers. So I get why in the past maybe they've been called buyer's agents, but it's very misleading.
It is.
Because people have said to us, but hang on, no, they have a buyer's agent working in their team. Who's paying that buyer's agent? The vendor.
So back to the
Question answered.
Back to the question that I think we maybe in session 1, episode 1, whatever, was...
I'm raising my voice. I'm getting passionate now. Calm down.
Breathe. I think you raised it in episode 1. the question we get asked quite often is, well, for people that are naive to a buyer's agent and what we do, is, well, why do I need a buyer's agent? I've got a selling agent. Well, there lies in the
Therein
point.
lies the problem.
Yeah, you do, and they absolutely will help you.
Totally.
But they're only going to show you their listings or their agency's listings. They're not going to show you a cross section of the market. They're not going to listen to your brief and your requirements and really understand them.
Hunting what you really want.
No, they're not. And at the end of the day, they're not working for you. Yes, they're helping you, but they're working still for the vendor and being paid by the vendor. And that is the biggest thing that people don't understand.
We get clients that come on board and say, why did the selling agent send me that property? It's not even what I want. Well, it's not, but it's just maybe you'll like it, so I'll send it. It's what you do when you're trying to sell something.
Absolutely.
You think, oh, well, I don't really know exactly what they want, so I'll send this. It might suit them. Great. It's good service. But we're going another step. We're not doing that. We're actually going out searching for the very thing that our clients want.
And I guess we just need to throw in a disclaimer here. We're not, it shouldn't be like this side and that side.
No.
It's absolutely not that.
But it's got to be clear
There's
on
a
the roles.
huge place for everybody's role in this, but it's just, I guess, identifying clearly whose role is what, and they all collaborate to get a great result for their client.
We do feel a little bit like we can speak from this because we've done it, and we didn't do it for 5 minutes either.
No.
We did it for a long time. So I feel like being a selling agent is really hard. It's hard. It's hard work. It's hard slog. It's great, but it's hard. You're dealing, that's another point we'll bring up. We may as well bring it up now, seeing as we're nearly there. The negotiating, right? That's another, so we've talked about time, we've talked about off markets, we've talked about, the red flags and the mitigating risk and all that sort of stuff. But let's talk about the big one, negotiating. Some people go, I don't know how to negotiate a house. You just, make an offer and see where you go.
And some people may negotiate in other careers or,
Yes.
negotiate other types of things.
And they're probably really good at it.
Yeah.
But there are so many moving parts. You're not buying a car. Great, it's probably hard to sell cars. I don't know. Like, it's a sales job. Sales is hard. And not taking anything away from that, it's still negotiating. And I'm sure there's ways and means to do that really well as well. But you've got this moving market and all these moving pieces and all this emotion and a seller and a buyer and an agent and an investment of marketing money and an expectation of price or a property that the vendors bought and they need this much to sell, all of these moving parts. Plus you've got a market going on, interest rate rises going on, an economy happening, all of these things that make negotiating harder.
Absolutely. And also, as a selling agent, typically you're managing both sides.
This is the point that I was trying to make.
This is the crucial, critical side of it.
As a buyer's agent, we negotiate property, right? We do. But we're not really true negotiators as buyer's agents. We are. I'm not trying to take anything away from being a buyer's agent and you need to negotiate property. But the buyer's agents that haven't been selling agents, have they ever negotiated the both sides? Because that's where the true art of negotiation comes in, right?
100%.
How many times have you on the phone to your vendor, on the phone to your buyer, on the phone to your vendor, and you got to handle that.
On the auction floor, going to your vendor, going to your buyer, going to that buyer, going back to your vendor, and you're the whole time
respectfully and without overstepping and making sure everybody gets the right opportunity and not. That is the true art of negotiation.
100% it is. Yeah.
And that's where the buyer's agents that haven't done it don't understand the selling agents and how hard it is. It takes a lot of years of experience to do that well. And there are some awesome selling agents on the coast that are fantastic negotiators. So how as a buyer who you've bought one house, no house,
in your life,
2 houses, how are you going to go against those skilled negotiators? Mm-hmm. That's the question.
Absolutely. So when you ask yourself, why do I need a buyer's agent when I've got a selling agent? maybe those things might come to mind.
Because they're going to rock and roll you all over town. Aren't they really?
Absolutely.
They'll see you coming a mile away. So what are some of the questions?
But so they should. That's their job.
That's their job. They do it every day. You do it once in your life, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. Maybe if you do it 10 times, you'd be better at it after 10 times. But we do it 10 times in a month. So it's a skill. It's like anything. It's a learnt skill, and it's one of the biggest things that is kind of can be overlooked a little bit as the value of a buyer's agent. So,
and buyer's agents, and again, this is not taking anything away from any other buyer's agents, but I guess from an experience level, a buyer's agent that has actually, and there's plenty out there that have been selling agents as well, it gives a really strategic edge when it comes to negotiation. It's just a different level of expertise. It really is.
So we even made that decision in our team, right?
We did.
We don't want a buyer's, well, I should never say never, but our focus on building our team of buyer's agents is that they do need to have some experience as a selling agent.
Yep.
We just feel like it's such a deep knowledge that you don't know what you don't know. And if you've never walked in someone's shoes, how do you know? You don't know.
It also gives a different level of understanding around the entire process, because whilst the process is similar, it's still different on both sides. And you know, the biggest realisation for us of how different many aspects are when we built our CRM. When we went through and process mapped out every step, it was so apparent. We just, you know, naively, I guess, a little bit in the beginning, we were like,
we'll just
we know this process. We'll just, you know,
we'll just adapt
flip it to the other side. Yeah, no. It is very different.
It's very different.
It is. And there's different steps at different parts of the, you know, of the whole process.
And the psychology's different.
It is.
You ask any of the top agents in the country and they'll talk about the psychology. You know, how many ARICs have we been to?
Yep.
And look at the incredible operators on the stage that we see there year after year. They talk about the psychology because it's really important. So if you haven't understood that psychology of that other side of the equation, you know, maybe, you know, that's good experience to have. Hence why in our team we'd like to have buyer's agents as we grow that have that experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess with, you know, there's a lot of things, and we don't want to delve into this too deeply, I guess, but if there's buyers out there that are in the marketplace at the moment, some of the questions that maybe they should ask because a selling agent will obviously encourage you to put an offer in. So before you make an offer, perhaps ask yourself or them a few questions. And, you know, tricks of the trade, we're all about sharing. Everyone, as you said, a buyer's agent of everyone. Some buyers might want to go it on their own, and they might listen to this and get a few tips.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess something we also haven't touched in, you know, what a buyer's agent does. We keep things, you know, a lot of our clients are quite discreet, and they don't, you know, want anyone to know who they are essentially. So they remain anonymous. And all of our clients actually do, for that matter, right up to the point that we start negotiating and have to provide details for a contract. So, I mean, it is a little more difficult if they've already been in the market themselves for a period of time, because they've had exposure to agents and they've been looking, and, you know, it's a different story. But particularly our high-end clients, there's a lot of our purchases up in, you know, multi-million-dollar arena that no one knows about at all. We've had to sign confidentiality agreements for personal reasons. We haven't been able to disclose that we're looking at a property.
Okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, if someone wants to not share it, we're okay with that. We don't have to share it. We know what we do and who we help. Sometimes that's the way it is.
But I think it's a real benefit for our clients, that they can have that sense of, you know, security and safety, if you like, that their name's not going to be dropped all over town, and you know, we're not there to share every single purchase that we make. And yeah, I guess I know one of our one of our clients said to us something that was quite interesting, that, you guys seem to, do a lot of transactions or purchase a lot of property in this kind of, space, and sort of gave a price range. And whilst it's sort of the average price range on the Central Coast, and that very valid point, it's actually misinformed, because we actually help people of all budgets. We've helped people, can't remember what our lowest is, just slightly sub 500,000, because you can't get much under that level, unfortunately, in our market now. But, we've helped people for the first time with really low budgets, whether they're a first-time investor or, first home buyer. But we've got a lot of really large transactions that we've never spoken about, never shared, no one would ever know, and then there's everywhere in between. So we made a really conscious decision in our business that we genuinely believe that all buyers need help. It doesn't matter how many houses they've purchased, it doesn't matter what price range they're in, it doesn't matter how much experience they have, but all buyers deserve a level of assistance.
We genuinely feel that. We get as much excitement helping a first home buyer than we do a $6 million property.
Yep.
Honestly, sometimes even more, because it's so emotional and so important.
Absolutely.
We genuinely believe that everyone deserves help. And people have said to us, why don't you branch into this end of the market or that end of the market? And a lot of buyers agents do, and that's totally their decision. We want to stay diverse.
Yeah, I think it's important because the market is diverse, and
also
markets
know
come
how it
and go.
changes.
Oh, it's so volatile. Because we've been doing this so long, we've been through the GFC, we've been through COVID now. We have lived through so many fluctuations in the market, and they all bring about different challenges and different, things to navigate. And again, that brings another perspective to what we do. And so we are very well aware that different corners of the market, come and go at various times. And so again, that comes back. We want to be there to assist, no matter what the market is, no matter what's going on, cut out the noise. And at the end of the day, no matter what the market's doing, we have no control over it. But property will always transact, always, because property transacts because of life. Different things happen, life, births, deaths, marriages, all sorts of things. And so no matter what is happening, we just cut out the noise and we focus on the here and the now and deal with what's going on to make things happen.
Probably a great thing to ask a buyer's agent if you're talking about engaging one is, how many market cycles have you seen? Markets cycle in and out, and it's important to understand that, not just, there was quite a lot of agents enter the market, both selling agents and buyer's agents, during the COVID boom. And I can honestly, hand on heart, say what I saw those selling agents go through, which would have been hard in a way, having 100 people at an open home and having multiple offers. And I don't mean multiple, I mean like 20 offers on a property.
And aggressive, like people literally making threats
be using
and all
them
sorts of things. Yeah,
I never operated in that market. I started in real estate in 2007, and yes, I saw the GFC. If we had 2 buyers on a house, we were doing a happy dance. Honestly, I've never, ever operated as a selling agent in that zone. So there was a lot of selling agents who entered the market with that happening. Well, when that stopped and they actually had to look for buyers, they were like, hang on a minute, what's happening? What's going on? Where are the buyers? So you've got to manufacture those deals then, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was interesting to see what happened in COVID, because that would have been, as much as it was great and no one's, a lot of selling agents made a lot of money in that time. It was a fabulous time in the market. It was also a hard time. They would finish their Saturday and literally have 300 calls or inquiries they had to get back to. How do you do that? Yeah, so it was all so challenging, and there was a lot of emotion and FOMO in the market, and people were getting very abusive, and there was all the stress around COVID. It was crazy times.
Absolutely. So I guess wrapping up this session. So I guess today
we're going to give some tips around negotiating. What would be some of the questions so we can leave the buyers out there some of the questions around the timing of an offer. What sort of questions would you ask? Because when the selling agent says, okay, great, you love the property, give me an offer, I would probably say one of the first things is look at the timing of it. If you've just been to a first open home, will they sell after today's open home? Or are they wanting to go through a process? Are they committed to a few weeks? Or potentially you've got into the property before the first open home, maybe on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and you're being encouraged to make an offer. Are they going to sell before that first open home? Because if you do make an offer and it's a strong offer, be very aware that that will set the bar for what happens at the open home. So I think that's an important question to ask, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Also too, I think it's important if buyers are out there looking not to be budget driven, as we spoke earlier about, they need to really look at, well, first of all, why are they purchasing? They need to actually understand what their strategy is, what their why is, why are they buying, where do they want to be, where do they like to be. It's not just about the property or the budget, it's also about lifestyle. All those things marry together. So it's about going in with a really clear understanding and understanding what has sold in the market, not what the asking price is.
We often tell our clients to go to the sold
100%.
section.
And set your pricing strategy at the back of the real estate portals for what your budget is, and don't look at the top end, because the reality is it's going to go above the top end. So you need to realistically look at what you can realistically afford and look at what's sold. So many of our clients send us properties when we first start working with them, and they're properties that are like going to sell $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 above what they can afford. And they're like, yeah, but the guide says this. And it's like, or it comes up, there's no price on it, but it comes up in my price range. And they're not understanding, what's actually sold. They wouldn't have a clue, because then we actually send them properties that have sold with actual sold prices, and they're like, oh, all right, wow.
And we understand how those search parameters are set in the back of realestate.com. Again, back to having worked in a selling agency, that's just set by, you can put whatever you want in the search criteria.
Yeah, there's no rules.
So there's no rules around that. So you want to, and obviously a selling agent wants to make sure they're scooping everyone in and around that budget. So they're not going to set it too high. So the search criteria is quite loose.
Absolutely.
It's a bit misleading, and buyers would find it hard. And when you go in with an offer, there's a fine line between it, particularly, and you've got to read the room, right? You've got to read what's happening in the market, how much stock is there, how much competition's on this property. Don't go in with an insulting offer. Like that's not going to achieve anything, and argue with the selling agent. That's only going to get you down the list of a priority.
Yeah, they're not going to come back to you.
So there's a certain amount of be respectful, because the selling agent has a lot of influence with the vendor. They do. They have a relationship. So be respectful. And yes, you want to buy it for the best possible price, but there's no point lowballing it ridiculously where you're never going to buy it.
You don't want to be a pain. Like at the end of it, let's be real, you don't want to be a pain. How many times as a selling agent have we been sitting in a lounge room and we have two contracts, and the vendor, there could even be a price difference, and they'll choose the lower offer, but they'll go, I really like that family. I really like those people. Those people are rude. So let
Sell
me tell
your story a little bit when you have to, and work out your terms. I mean, as buyers agents, we set pricing strategies. We know where we want to land before we even go into a negotiation. That's kind of getting a bit technical. But as a buyer out there, have an idea of where you want this to land.
It's not just about price either. It's about terms. Like you need to package up, and don't come back after the fact. So don't negotiate and then go, oh yeah, it's all happy days in there. Oh, by the way, I've only got this, or I need an extended settlement. Like it all has to be in the one.
And don't say you've got your pre-approval when you haven't.
Yeah.
Because that'll really tick off a selling agent. Because if you're not ready to buy, there's no point going in and
I don't know
offers.
Any selling agent ever, maybe in other markets, so I shouldn't say ever, but certainly not in our market, that would be conditional on finance. Like it's just, our market conditions don't support that type of negotiation. Okay, there's always exceptions to the rule and extenuating circumstances, but generally don't go out shopping when you don't have the money, because most likely if you try and negotiate and you don't have the money and you want to make it, dependent on an approval, the answer is going to be no. and rightly so.
The cleaner the offer is, you've got to look at it from the vendor's perspective. And I know a buyer always wants a deal, and don't get us wrong, we're all about a deal. But you've got to look at it from the seller's perspective. You're buying the most expensive item you'll ever buy. They're selling the most expensive item they'll ever sell. So you've got to be respectful of both sides of the equation while still buying a quality property at a great price.
100%.
So there we have. This is how we help our clients. So hopefully that's been informative, and we tend to dart around a little bit, don't we? But
we are diverting all over the place.
But, hopefully it made sense, and hopefully it puts it into, a more layman's terms of what goes on out there. And there's so much more, like interpreting price guides and things like that we can talk about at other times, because that's a big challenge for people in the market.
Yeah, perhaps us darting all over the place kind of shows how many moving parts there are to it. It's actually so...
This is what goes on in our car. Sometimes we give ourselves a headache. We're like, what about that? What about that? And that? Oh, yeah, that.
But
this
that's,
is what real estate's
that's something else.
like.
We never, ever enter a negotiation without rehearsing.
No, we don't. And we've been doing this a long time.
We, never, because there's always something that you haven't thought of, or an element that you haven't considered, and and it's really good. We never ever, still to this day, enter a negotiation without hashing it out or rehearsing it or role playing or whatever,
just to get another perspective.
100%.
Even though we do it all the time, even if it's a fairly straightforward negotiation, we still call and go, we're about to negotiate this property.
What do you reckon?
What do you think about this?
Yep.
Do you reckon this is reasonable? What do you think? How do you think? That's how we do it. Because we're not, you know what? Every single negotiation from 20 years ago, you learn something new every time. They're never the same, are they?
They're never the same.
And
never,
we still
ever.
come across things occasionally, not too often these days.
So I guess that's another tip for a buyer. Don't listen to the internet. Don't Google questions to ask or how I should negotiate. Oh, my God, so many times we hear... Oh, gosh, it's cringy that we hear buyers who've obviously read somewhere on the internet or got some list of questions or anyway, they've listened to some guru and they go in and it's just like, oh, my gosh, that is just so off the mark and not correct and not well informed.
What about that thing I read the other day?
You can't learn. It's not scripted. I hate to say.
I read, not naming any names, but there was a conveyancer that put out some tips. If you're selling and buying, and some of it was really great, if you're selling and buying a house and you don't know the process, because that's a big sticking point at the moment. It's why there's some of the reasons why the stock levels are low, because sellers are worried they'll get stuck without a house if they sell. So this particular article was aimed at if you're selling and buying. And it was some great things about bridging finance and, be careful and the timing and all that kind of stuff. But the advice was, if you haven't sold your house yet and you're buying a house, you can make the purchase contingent to the sale of your house. I'm sorry. I don't know what Chat GPT textbook that came out of. But I'm telling you right now, on the Central Coast, Lake Macquarie, Newcastle, if you said to the selling agent, I'd like to make an offer on this property, please, and I'd like to make it contingent on the sale of my home, you'd be laughed out of the property.
100%.
It's not going to happen. So it's a little bit misleading, because a seller would then think, oh, great, I can make my offer contingent on the sale of my house. That's a great way to do it.
And maybe there has been a time for that in the past. I vaguely recall back in the day, a long time ago, where that may have been a strategy.
In the dark ages.
Yeah, well, I am pushing 30 years. Anywho, but rarely, again, extenuating circumstances. And
maybe in COVID, when everything was flying out the door, maybe that might have worked then. Don't even think then, but just saying there's a very rare circumstance.
Well, it's too much risk for them. Why would they do that and just say they agreed? They could waste a whole weeks longer waiting for the sale of this house that could be overpriced. It maybe have something fundamentally wrong with it.
Doesn't see the light of day. Could be on a main road.
Absolutely. And then it all falls over and then they've wasted all that time. They're still stuck with their house, and the market could have dropped by then, and they're not going to get the same price.
And then they can't buy your house, buy the house because they got less than that. It's just a disaster.
Absolutely fraught with disaster.
So a good example of not all advice is good advice, it's nice to get another perspective
100%
from a buyer's agent.